So with Joe Root, I've been thinking about something a lot. And weirdly, I think it's probably appeared many times in cricket. Here we see someone who was made captain because they are the best batter. Fine, normal, okay. Root is obviously a next level and beyond talent, an absolute great batter that will go down as a legend of English cricket.
This is the last knot. My dad told me to say this.
But his team has lost a lot, and therefore his captaincy gets more stick than another captain would receive if they had won more. That's fairly normal. I think you're following me so far. And so Joe Root stepped down. Of course, it's not the only thing that's going on with England cricket. They're currently looking for a new head coach, as well as a new test captain. And one of the names that England and many in the media have pushed so far is Ricky Ponting. Ricky Ponting was also the best batter in his team, who was made largely the captain because of this, and then was often ridiculed because of his lack of tactical nous, especially when his team didn't win. And then when he went into commentary, he spoke better than others, and he ended up back as a coach, and he started racking up a few wins in the IPL. For instance, if you listen to Mark Taylor in the commentary box, he doesn't sound anywhere near as insightful as Ricky Ponting. Yet everyone raved about his tactical nous as a player. So that made me wonder about what happens to Joe Root in 5 to 10 years' time, when he's rightfully seen as the great English batter of the modern era. Will he come back as coach, or director of cricket, or chief selector, head scout, or grand poobah emperor lord of English cricket? And then I also thought, what will he have learned about cricket by that point that he didn't know when he was England's longest serving captain? But we know he will come back, either in a position, or at the least the press will call for him at one stage or another. I had doubts about Root's captaincy pretty much from the start. I think tactically he's basically a bit algorithmic, which in limited overs works because that is a game that can almost be worked out by equations. But Test cricket is so much harder than that. And I also think at times he was seen by some of his own senior players as not quite a leader of men. Now this might be what their idea of a leader is rather than any basis in reality, but I still think it was there. But I also believe that almost everything I just said is kind of largely nonsensical. As the more research I do into Test cricket, the more I think that captains are massively overrated. Maybe it just comes from olden days cricket. If you look at Mike Brealey's day and beyond, a captain was a manager and a coach, and a psychologist, and the guy who worked out the best route to the ground in the morning. Captains were huge back then, but many of those jobs are taken by other people now, sometimes lots of other people. And yes, Root did have slightly more tactical decisions. Root did have to do a little bit more juggling because he did have 5-man lineup, which is trickier than 4-man, where you are mostly just replacing people when they are tired. And there is always the fields, which people complain about a lot, but we don't track. So much of that is just speculative bullshit. But Root is gone, hounded by the never-ending narrative that he wasn't that good a captain. Some of that seems to overlook the fact he did have quite a hard schedule of recent times. Didn't always have his best players because they were being rested for another format. The bowling attack just couldn't take 20 wickets away from home. And he had one batter averaging over 40, which of course is Joe Root. And this leads us to Ben Stokes, who we're assuming is going to be more tactically dynamic than Root, who will lead England by example. Except that doesn't really make sense. Why would the England players be more inspired by him now than they were before? And wasn't Root also leading by example? I mean, being the only guy who could make any runs, literally making almost 3 times as many runs as any other English player in a year seems pretty leadery by exemplary to me. And there may well be a boost for Stokes when he first takes over. Of course, he's going to be going up against a pretty good New Zealand team and a South African team that has a lot of bowling options and may not be a consistent threat, but certainly can win almost any game at any time. And also, England still can't bat. And England still struggle to take wickets overseas. And they just lost to the West Indies while trying to find themselves. I mean, Stokes can run through a brick wall for his team. But unless he does that and finds a spinner on the other side of that wall, they're still going to struggle in Asia. Of course, they could just select Stuart Broad as captain, which I believe is like a guy telling his girlfriend that he isn't ready for her to meet his parents, and then a week later asking her to marry him. Now, even if you think Root was a bad captain, it is very clear that it is hard to consistently win with the team that he had. The system seems to be broken in English cricket, but they seem hell-bent on looking for magic men who can fix it all in one swoop. Rob Key is already being compared to Ravi Shastri, but Shastri was a coach, and the gap between player and coach, especially in a very well-run system, is quite small. Rob Key is being parachuted into management without really any experience, and he might well be brilliant in this role. But hiring someone who has never done it before and probably doesn't understand the distress and all-encompassing nature of this role, that's a hell of a leap of faith. And let's just go back to Joe Root for a minute. It would be incredible if England hounded Root out of the job, only to make, or even offer, or even just ask casually over a late night WhatsApp if Ricky Ponting wants to be coach. People in Australia question Ponting's funkless fielding placements all the way through his career. See any Channel 9 broadcast from that era for proof. But that was nothing compared to what he got in the UK. In 2005, and then again in 2009, the narrative on Ponting was that he was tactically inept. A great batter, but nothing without his star bowlers dominating, and his batting lineup backing them up. Yeah, if that sounds familiar, yeah. If the Ponting thing does happen, that's a whole new storyline to bother Joe Root just as he learns how to sleep at night again. But for me, it's more about the pattern. It's weird how often the players we say are broken or not good enough, can't get it done, don't handle the pressure, become so important when the team is losing. That does seem to be the pattern in cricket. And I don't know if it's just because we forget what happened or we think that players do learn a lot more after they retire. I don't really know how it works, but I know this. There's going to be a time in the future when Joe Root is going to be seen absolutely as the great batter he is. And at that time, if England are losing, there's a chance that somewhere along the line he gets a phone call.